Welcome to the Healers Café, conversations on health and healing with Dr. Manon.
So welcome to the Healers Café, and today I have with me Ora Nadrich, and she's a mindfulness expert, a mindful expert thought coach, and she's an author, a columnist at the Daily Clout, and I'm sure those of you that are listening to this podcast know about the Daily Clout by now. She's also been featured in all kinds of magazines and NBC News, Success Magazine. Oh, just too many to mention. But I really am excited to have you here because we're definitely in times for mindfulness thought leadership and really understanding with all that we're facing, no matter where we stand, what we thought, we've all gone through many processes, and definitely grieving is one of the big processes we've gone through. So I wanted to first thank you for being here, and maybe start by sharing a little bit what you do, how you came into what you do. So we get to know you a little bit.
Thank you, Manon, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. So I've been a mindfulness practitioner for quite a long time, an author. My book that's out right now, Time to Awaken, Changing the World with Conscious Awareness, is my 5th book. And having been a mindfulness practitioner for so long, I find myself looking at mindfulness in a very different way, juxtaposed to the state of our world today. And for those that have read my books prior, I've really stayed in I would say, the really lovely aspects of mindfulness, which is the practice of present moment awareness. And now I find myself plugging mindfulness, basically the act of being present, into a very changed world, which has been very interesting to take the notion of being present and bring it into a unbelievably new world that we're in today. Very different in the world that it was 3 years ago. My background is very much in the psychospiritual milieu. I've been in the psychospiritual environment for quite some time. I was an actress for 10 years, many, many, many years ago, and a screenwriter. But I always felt very resonant towards understanding the self. And I took myself on this very vast journey of self-realization and studied many different modalities in the wellness field, and became a thought coach and a mindfulness practitioner, as well as writing my books. So I've been in the world of mindfulness for quite some time, and I think it's pretty interesting to be in this world, or the world of mindfulness, if you will, in a very changed world today.
So what would you say is, when you say interesting? I have a little quote here from Naomi Wolf from the Daily Clout. She says, Ora Nadrich is that rare writer who can mediate between matters of the spirit and issues related to current social and political events. When I read that, I went, okay, so that's what many of us are doing, trying to do, finding our way. Tell us a little bit how it is for you, and how do you mediate that?
Well, I think that the mindfulness path, if you will, the path of awareness, the path of present moment awareness, is really a very useful path to be on at a time when we never could have anticipated the world changing so radically as it has over the last 3 years. And the way in which I navigate it and I'm on the journey just like everybody else is. And I know that I speak of the awakened traveler on the life journey, and someone perhaps that's not as aware or awake to the changes that we are facing today. I look at it more from an awakened point of view, or awakening, I should say, because it's an ongoing process. And for me, it holds great meaning because I know how important the mindfulness path is, because it is a path of raising one's awareness, which raises our consciousness. And I feel that that is the very thing that is needed so much on this planet today, that we have an incredible opportunity to wake up to a very changed world and envision a world that we can usher in, that is one that is possible. And it's a world that is more intelligent. It's a world that's more evolved. It's a world that's more conscious. And in many ways, as difficult as these changes are for us, they seem actually necessary. I think that we have reached a very important pivotal time in our history, in our humanity, if you will, where we must change that which no longer serves us.
It made me think, because I'm sure you know Byron Katie, but she says, you can't fight with reality, and it's like part of it is true, but we don't have to fight, but we are constantly creating reality, right? So it's that
Yes.
between what you're talking about, that mindfulness, being present and feeling like what's around isn't making sense anymore on some level, at different levels. I mean,
Yes.
The banking system, I mean, just everything.
Oh yeah, yes, of course, the systems. Let's just say the systems. The systems, the constructs,
right,
the institutions, the systems that we relied on, the systems that we believed in, the systems that perhaps we trusted, and the systems that we allowed to lead us.
yes,
Those are systems that we now know cannot make decisions for us based on our own agency of ourselves and our sovereignty. Do you know that we find ourselves at a time that is showing us that we can no longer put that outside of ourselves? And even if we project onto these systems or things like our government, our health organizations, these systems and these institutions that we just assumed would always lead us in the right direction are just crumbling right before our eyes, and are showing us that they have led us in very wrong directions. That's very hard for a lot of people to accept, because people need to be told what to do. It's very hard to take responsibility, I think, for most people. They want to be able to say, well, why would our government lie to us? Why would our health institutions and organizations, why would they lead us astray? Why would they want to harm us? And I know that that is a very difficult pill for a lot of people to swallow, that the world as we've known it to be, it's like lifting the veils of illusion or putting the curtain aside, like you would in the Wizard of Oz. The curtain had to be moved so that you could see that there was a little old man behind a curtain with a very loud voice that was scaring Dorothy and her friends, who'd come there to get what they needed.
Yeah.
And it really just, it deconstructs this whole ideal of how we think life is supposed to be, and it puts a tremendous responsibility on each and every one of us. It's incumbent upon each and every one of us to decide what is healthy, what is not healthy, what is sound, what is not sound, what is of the light, what is of the dark. We have to be our own everything right now. And I think people really need to understand that that's where we are in our humanity at this moment in time.
Yeah, no, I very much agree with that. And it's confusing. I'm going to talk about a field I know, but the sort of the medical field, we say, well, not all doctors are bad. And of course, not all doctors are bad, but it's not about bad per se. It's the system in which they were grown up to be doctors doesn't question things. It's the same system where, if the hospital says go for ventilators, whatever, and that can be corrupted, as we know it has been, because they got paid off to do that and all that. But let's take the corruption aside. It's like an abdication of self responsibility. It's
Yeah.
like, how could doctors not ask to read the labels? What if the FDA made a mistake? We know there was no mistakes. We know this was planned. I can appreciate that. I'm talking on several levels, but the thing is, individually, it's hard to believe that we actually have such a had such a powerful system that we didn't question that anything.
Well, with all due respect to doctors, and especially if you go from the allopathic education model for doctors, as we know it would be considered Western medicine, it is really a model that is designed to treat you when you're already ill. It's not preventative.
Yeah.
It doesn't teach people how to maintain their health. It is a system that is there for you when you are ill, and that alone is really very questionable to me. I know there's other forms of practicing the medical profession, whether it's integrative medicine or more of a holistic approach to medicine, as you know, because this is your field. So when you say with doctors, they are themselves relying on things like big pharma, the pharmaceutical industry. It's designed for profit. It's designed to make money. And it's so really true that we have a medical complex that is designed to basically keep people not well. And that sounds very nefarious. I don't believe the doctors are intentionally, it's their job. They practice because they want to do what's in the best interest of their patients. But the system itself is faulty. The system itself is broken. So many of these systems have broken. They're broken as we speak. And that's why I think a lot of that has got to be revealed to show us that we can no longer practice. Doctors really can't practice in those ways anymore. Certainly there are those that would, argue and say that's absolutely ridiculous because that's all they know, and it really takes the patient out of the equation. It takes us out of the equation. And we could just see even what happened with over the last 3 years, what was, called a pandemic. I like to use Mickey Willis's word plandemic from his Plandemic series, that we were told from day one that we did not have natural immunity, that we don't have bodily autonomy. It really believes the whole misconception of germ theory. There was nothing that was presented to us that was at all about being healthy.
No.
That to me showed us everything. If we could learn from what just happened, that there was nothing. There was be isolated, stay in your house, don't even go out and breathe fresh air, don't be around people. You should be afraid, you've got to wear a mask, you're going to catch a disease that could kill you. And if you don't comply, you're going to kill grandma. It's all about fear. And I think the whole system is designed that way. Even if it was pre-COVID, these systems don't work. They're broken.
No, and to add to that point and to make it even more shocking, because I was in the naturopathic field for 30 years. And there, it's integrated health. It's, we're actually doing health. We're looking at, what people need. We know they have an immune system. But when it came to this, our boards, and they still insist, our schools, that everyone be, take these bioweapons. I mean,
Right.
it's unbelievable. And so there's another layer to, like, you don't want to upset things. It's this belief in authority, and it's so deep, but not our own sense of authority. Like, if we pledge to do no harm, I mean, to me, that is what should be what we follow.
And many doctors try to follow that. Many doctors that wanted to give their patients ivermectin and wanted to give their patients monoclonal antibodies, which we know was withheld from the public, and it's crimes against humanity because doctors have to do what's in the best interest for their patients. And if there's superiors above them admonishing them because they're connected to big pharma and they're trying to roll out these vaccines so that you don't take these things like vitamin D and quercetin and glutathione, and this is your area of expertise. It's shocking, and we could talk about the shocking aspect of it. It makes no sense, but hopefully people are waking up to this now so that they can really take agency over their lives and make decisions that is resonant for themselves, that is based on their own truth and their own innate understanding of what bodily autonomy and natural immunity means to each and every one of us, and not it to be dictated by those we deem as authorities to tell us what that is. We are the arbiters of that.
What would your life be like if you were pain-free? If you were one of the millions who suffer from chronic pain, the thought of just one day without it may seem impossible. This is often because conventional medicine tends to fall short in the treatment of pain, opting to prescribe pills or recommend surgery rather than getting to the root cause of the problem. But if you are suffering with emotional or physical pain, there is hope. Join the founder and CEO of Bowen College, Manon Bolliger, live online for your body-mind reboot. Learn how to listen to your symptoms and get to the root cause of your pain. Plus, be trained in basic Bowen therapy moves so that you can reboot your body for optimal health. You don't have to live in pain. You can heal. Stop the pain pill cycle by visiting www.yourbodymindreboot.com to learn more and to register.
Yes. So what are steps that you do, that you intuitively do, or that you teach, that at this point, you're not in general mindfulness, but with this, knowing all this, and let's say you don't have a background in medicine or in even health, where do people start?
Well, as a mindfulness practitioner, I come from a place of being present. And when you're present, you're seeing what's in front of you. You're listening. You're mindfully aware of what is happening. And what I really encourage people is to be aware, to listen, and to ask questions, and to really be with what is being presented to you, and ask yourself if it makes sense. Does it ring true for you? Does it resonate for you? Does it not make sense? And if so, why? And that you have a right to go against these systems that we're talking about and say, even though this is a person who's in a position of authority, or this is a health institution that is supposed to tell me what's in my best interest, I don't want to go along with this. So it's very important, especially with what we've gone through over the last 3 years. And even these health institutions have told us that the masks don't work. Right. And it does not stop transmission, does not stop you from getting this. The vaccines didn't work. All the things that they told us were not true. So what I would tell to people today, well, why would you listen to that again? Why don't you find out what is true for you and act on that? Now, someone might be listening to this and saying, well, that all sounds fine and good, but what if they mandate things again? And what if they tell me what to do again? Well, that's a personal decision. I think that if everybody steps forward and says, sorry, fool, what is that saying? Fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you. It's like you really cannot not take responsibility for what you have to take responsibility for. Why would you allow yourself to be fooled again? It would be shame on you. And you can't blame it on these institutions. You have to make sound decisions. And, I really believe in the mantra that's reverberating far and wide today, and that is do not comply.
Yeah.
Why would you comply to more insanity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that raises, for me at least, the question of knowing your own intuition. How do you know that the voice that's in you is the voice that you need to listen to? And there's many ways that that people can verify that, but I'm curious, how do you tell people?
I'm a very intuitive person, and I trust my intuition. And I know if there's something that follows my intuitive feeling afterwards, is usually doubting the very thing that I'm feeling. And that comes secondary, because what comes first is an intuitive, visceral feeling about something. And I trust it. And I've lived my life long enough to know that it has led me in the right direction. And what hasn't led me in the right direction is when I went against it, and when I did not listen to it, and I did not trust it, and I doubted my own intuitive sense of guiding myself exactly where I needed to be. And, for somebody who's saying, well, how do I trust my intuition? Trust it and see where it takes you and see where it leads you. I think that's the most you can ask of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you'll have the experiences. But I think you're right. When people remember what their first feeling was about something, and they didn't follow it, they can see within their own life experience where they justified it, or they found a way against it. I wanted to share one thing that I've done with people that surprisingly has worked quite well, and I just thought your feedback on this is I started with food. Is this food good for my body? And you would do a type of AK where you either give me a yes or give me a no. And it seems like, okay, that's so basic and silly, but if you do that, you can do that with supplements. You can do that with the type of fish oil you might take, and you can also do that with big decisions. Once you really know that your body is going to speak the truth first, for me, it was a simple way to get people to get out of their heads. Because what I found in the people I was working with, it's like, well, is this a thought or is this an intuitive hit? And it's like, it's a medley of like, I don't know. And once you get that thing working up there, nothing's working anymore.
Exactly. And I feel that the more you really trust and honor your own intuition, it's something to really honor and respect about yourself, that we have this ability to really guide ourselves exactly where we need to go. And that's an incredible ability to have. One must honor that ability and let it guide you, like it's your inner compass. It's like your inner North Star that's going to direct you exactly where you need to be. And the more you allow yourself to trust it, like I said, I know for me personally, whenever I've gone against my gut instinct, my intuition, an intuitive sense of what felt authentic to me, I know that I went towards doubt rather than certainty, and that my intuition was giving me the signals that I needed to know right away.
Mm-hmm. And also, I think too, if you're in a state of fear, that's not the time to check in with your intuition. You first have to get out of this sympathetic, system of trauma-based, whatever, all that stuff.
Exactly.
Breathe, come back, ground yourself, and then ask the question, you know.
Which is a very good point that you're making, Manon, because I say in my book, Time to Awaken, one should never make the most important decisions of their lives, especially about our health, when we're in a state of fear. Because you're in an unnatural state, you're in a fight or flight state, and you're not going to make a sound decision based on that. You're going to be making a decision out of fear, and that is not when you want to make important decisions. So, you know, as you mentioned about, you know, taking that breath, the mindful pause, you know, I very much believe in that, to say, well, I don't have to make this decision right this minute. I can sit with this and I can be with it and I can really feel it and allow myself to explore it deeper within myself, to go within and ask myself some very important questions. Does this ring true for me? Does this resonate for me? Am I functioning out of a place of fear? Am I functioning out of a place of confidence? You know, I'm a big believer in the inquiry. I love asking questions, whether I'm asking questions of myself or I'm asking questions for guidance. I think it is so important. And, you know, we really have to be comfortable asking questions. You know, they've even manipulated that whole idea, because if you're a questioner, you're considered a conspiracy theorist. Yeah. So you have to look at the way in which we are brainwashed when we go towards self-autonomy, when we go towards our own sovereignty. That is very threatening, because it takes our dependency outside of ourselves and onto others, and it puts it back on ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, one other thing we touched on at the very beginning, but before we started this, but I wanted to go there a bit about creativity, right? And juxtaposed to fear, because most people, when they're in a new situation, or they now have to make completely different decisions or new decisions, they can't fall back on the structures that existed. A lot of people don't like change. A lot of people are afraid of what's new. So how to navigate that transition from, you know, because you could feel like overwhelmed, you could feel defeated, you could feel, I mean, here in Canada, we've got ways that people can self-suicide themselves at all ages and for all reasons.
Yeah, I know. It's challenging, and I really have a lot of compassion about the human condition right now, because I know that these are very challenging times for people for a lot of different reasons. You know, I know that there are people that are really just trying to make ends meet. I know there are people that felt that they were coerced to make decisions, whether it's to have gotten the vaccine or to do something against their will without informed consent. I don't want people to belabor that. I don't want us to look back. And as a mindfulness practitioner, I try and keep everything in present moment awareness. Yes, you can look back and say, well, what did I learn from that experience? And how do I want to do it differently from this day onward? And I think that's really important, because I think when you give yourself the permission to do the very things that we're talking about, to decide what feels right for you and what feels authentic or what feels inauthentic, what feels healthy, what doesn't feel healthy, what feels safe, what doesn't feel safe. And I think the more you give yourself the time and room to do that, you're going to start to feel less victimized and less desperate, if you will, and you're going to start to trust yourself more. And also what I want to say to that is the positive reinforcement that you can be telling yourself. I may not have all the answers right now, but you know what? I'm going to do one thing today that feels very authentic to me. I'm not going to act on something impulsively or impetuously. I'm going to take a moment to do some breath work. I'm going to pause. I'm going to give myself the time to really feel myself and to decide what feels authentic for me. Do you know? So that's going to start to make you feel more empowered. And what I see with a lot of people is they are in fear, or they're lamenting or begrudging what happened yesterday. That's not going to do us any good. We have to look at today as a new day, and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Do you know, the days that are coming? try and give yourself the permission and the time to listen to yourself, and that you are worthy of listening to, and that you are very capable of making very sound decisions for yourself. You do not need somebody outside of yourself or an authority figure to tell you what's best for you. If you want to talk about a decision with somebody, talk to people that you can trust. Talk to people that have the same understanding of truth as you do.
Yeah. And like you said, it's also one step at a time. It's not,
yes,
because we were seeing all these structures, it seems like mammoth behind us, and in front it feels like, what next? But
right.
it's just the next thing, and I love how you just say, spend it with yourself, or reach out to community that is community.
Yes. And it's a time for also community building. I want to add to that, because there are a lot of people that feel and have felt very alone. I created a women's group several months ago because I had one several years ago. And I thought, this is a really good time to bring people together so that we can really share information and we can feel a sense of community and create this collective bond during a very challenging time. I had 35 women who showed up the very first night I did it. I couldn't believe it. I thought I'd have like 10 women. There were so many women that came together, and so many of them had felt alone. They didn't have anybody to talk to. Their family members, they had trouble, communicating with family members. Some of them were vilified and ostracized and fired from their jobs. I mean, it was really sad to see that. And what I want to say is, you're really not alone. There's more of us than we even know. You just need to reach out and connect with people. And the next thing you know, you're talking to somebody who's like-minded. And you're like, wow, I'm really not alone. There are people that feel as I do. Do you know?
Yeah.
So I really encourage people to open up and allow people to come into their lives that are more like-minded.
Our time is up almost. I just wanted, your books are available. They're going to be all listed. Is there any last thing or invite for anyone to dig in deeper with the work you do and find out more?
I want to say that, I think reading Time to Awaken, there's a lot of helpful things in the book for anybody who's on this journey and whatever phase or stage they're in on this journey, that I think could be really helpful. And they can certainly order the book on Amazon. I just really encourage, everybody to start today. Start today in a whole new way on your mindfulness journey and become somebody who's wanting to be aware and awake. And I really encourage people to not lead out of fear, but lead from your heart and trust your own heart to lead the way for you.
Oh, thank you. And close with those words. Thank you, Ora.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café with Dr. Manon.